Hi, folks. Patrick Mullins here from Virginia Stage Company, and really excited to have this great group of humans in this Zoom space with us today. I do want to take a moment to acknowledge the land and the labor of the people who allow us to be here today. The Virginia Stage Company acknowledges the peoples of the Chesapeake, Nansemond, Pamunkey, and peoples of the Powhatan tribes as the original stewards of the lands taken by conquest on which the Welsh Theater now stands. The descendants of those indigenous peoples are members of our community. We recognize the profound loss that they endured and invite them to help make the theater an artistic and spiritual center for all who seek justice and wisdom. Also built in 1912 to 1913, the Welsh Theater was a part of downtown Norfolk during the unconscionable era of Jim Crow. The 1960 Woolworth lunch counter sit-in by the NSU students happened a block away on Monticello Avenue. And Virginia's dark history of massive resistance ended at the federal courthouse on Granby Street. All the Wells Black patrons of earlier years were admitted through a separate segregated entrance and relegated to a colored section in the second balcony until the 1960s. Since Virginia Stage Company has begun producing plays at the Wells Theater, the second balcony has had no seating and instead houses lighting and technical equipment. And today, the Board of Trustees and the artistic leadership and the staff of Virginia Stage Company endeavor to learn from the errors of the past to build a more equitable, humane, and loving society. My name is Patrick Mullins. I'm the Director of Public Works. And as I said, I'm honored to be here in this Zoom room of humans. Physically, I happen to be out in what is now Virginia Beach at MoCA, where educator nights going on out there, and the Virginia Stage Company's Green Beats is having a performance in a great show about the environment and making it better with songs by Sky Zents, and presented in collaboration with WHRO. So we're excited to be out here tonight, and I'm excited to be here at the same time because of the wonders of technology. I'm going to give you just a little rundown. If I told you all about everybody on this panel, it would take the whole hour. So I'm just going to kind of summarize a little bit, folks. So forgive me if I leave out something, and feel free to interrupt me to add something or whatever. I'll start with Asa Jackson. Hi, Asa. Asa is a visual artist, curator, and director based in Hampton Roads, Virginia. And as a multidisciplinary artist, his work explores the cross-section of textile from various countries, peoples, time periods, and personal histories. His works are often anthropological studies representing the lives of myriad people, their collective, and their individual stories. By cutting and sewing fabrics together, Jackson metaphorically mixes cultures, time periods, people, and places into unified works of art. After graduating from Hampton Roads Academy, he studied sociology at Boston University, moved to New York in 2010, where he was featured in several exhibitions, and including a career-defining solo exhibition at the Samuel Owen Gallery in Greenwich, Connecticut. Jackson then opened 670 Gallery in Virginia, was its director until 2017. He's been featured in numerous exhibits across Virginia and the nation. And he's the founder and director of the Contemporary Arts Network and CAN Foundation, a not-for-profit arts organization in Newport News with a focus on artistic development, arts education, and public projects. He currently serves as the chair for the Virginia Commission for the Arts and is on the board of the Mid-Atlantic Arts. Thanks for being here today, Asa.
Thank you, Patrick. Thanks.
Raisa Islam, let's introduce you next. She's the founder and director of Utopia Finney, a nonprofit for artists of every kind. Through her work, she's been able to curate events such as art exhibits, open mics, art markets, festivals, etc., to bring together visual artists, musicians, singers, producers, poets, dancers, and more. This brand has grown organically over the last 7 years and continues to impact our community. They've partnered with renowned brands locally and abroad, and everything they do supports their namesake village in Feni, Bangladesh, by supporting an art program in their village's school. Raisa also serves on the Arts and Humanities Commission of Virginia Beach and has developed a branding class for the students of the Governor's School for the Arts so that they too can move professionally in their creative journeys. Thank you for being here, Raisa.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Philip Odango. Philip's love of artistry and crafting first cultivated with directing theater. Then he expanded upon his technical skills in producing over 80 events. He parlayed his love of spectacle and visual storytelling into the craft of sewing, quickly gaining attention in the cosplay world. And since crafting his first cosplay of Edward Scissorhands out of garbage bags and pizza boxes, Philip has designed and displayed numerous costumes across the world. His cosplay your way approach is inspired by diverse and vibrant creators, ideas, and communities that he's met all over the globe. Philip curates his creations to reflect those journeys and demonstrates that cosplay is, above all else, an extension of one's creative self-expression. He's highly sought after internationally for partnerships, television series and branded collaborations. He shares his insights through classes, workshops, and panels at conventions, universities, and makerspaces worldwide. He's been featured by the New York Times, Threads Magazine, So Daily, Forbes, Business, you get the idea. And he's been sponsored by everyone from Amazon to Michaels to Velcro to IKEA to Joanne's stores. He owns a management creative consultancy and leans into 15 years of marketing, theater, and event production to author his book, the Cosplay Professional Development series of books, actually, to empower cosplayers. He completed Harvard's Business School Sustainable Business Strategy program, and he has certifications in inclusion and diversity. He serves on numerous boards and is a grant panelist for the NEA. His philanthropy includes Operation Smile and the arts. Thank you for being here, Philip.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Y'all, you're really hard to abbreviate because you all do so much good stuff. But I'm going to go next with Anthony Mark Stockard. Hi, Anthony. He has worked often with many theaters across the nation, including Virginia Stage Company here in Norfolk, but including many acting credits, professional acting credits at Classic Stage Company, Hartford Theater Works, Wellfleet Harper's Theater, Double Edge Theater, Berkshire Theater Festival, and Alabama Shakespeare Festival. He holds a BA in Theater Arts from Alabama State and an MA from Brandeis University. He proudly serves as the director of Virginia's most nationally recognized collegiate theater program and America's #1 most nationally recognized HBCU theater program for the last 5 years, of the last 5 years, NSU Theater Company. Since his arrival here at NSU, drama and theater, he's gained historic national recognition and acclaim and record-breaking attendance. He's the founding director of the brand new BA in Drama and Theater programs at Norfolk State. Recent honors include national awards from the Kennedy Center American College Theater Festival for distinguished production and performance, recognition for The Brothers' Size, Best Actor in a Play. The production beat out more than 1,300 productions to win Best in Festival, Best Fine Arts Program at the HBCU Awards in DC. He's the inaugural recipient of the 50 Under 50 Award for his alma mater, Alabama State. He's a presidentially appointed NSU Honors College Senior Fellow, and a whole lot of other stuff. He's recently directed, most recently, Dreamgirls at Virginia Stage Company, which closes Saturday. Don't forget to get your tickets to that. But has also won awards for his direction of Top Dog Underdog, Brother Size, Black Nativity, Brokology, and The Color Purple. He's a member of the Actors Union, the Directors Union, and a whole bunch of other stuff because he does really good stuff and works all the time, like all of you. Thank you, Anthony, for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
And last but not least is Miss Deirdre Love, and I'm actually going to hand this over to her after I say a few words. She has been here in Norfolk for a number of years, and she founded the community-based organization now known as Teens with a Purpose, the youth movement, a non-for-profit entity. She has worked as a subcontractor of Access AIDS, implementing an intervention called Community Promise, doing all kinds of partnerships. She's secured many grants to empower students and communities across Hampton Roads, and has formed community partnerships with everybody from the Norfolk Health Department, the AIDS Fund, the Urban League, Virginia Beach Public Schools, Norfolk Parks and Rec, Garden of Hope, Yosemite, and many others, and Geico. She's a member of the Virginia Health Department Planning Team on Violence Prevention, and she's a graduate of Project Inclusion. She has a vast and impactful history on many of our youth here in Hampton Roads, and frankly, me too. So Mama D, I'm going to hand this over to you to lead our discussion. Thank you so much for being here today. Oh, you're muted. Oh, we lost you again. There you go.
Okay, try it again. Thanks, Patrick. And I'm honored to be in this space with all of you. And I'm really happy that our conversation is going to take place. That's a really old bio on me, and that's my fault because I probably didn't give you any information, any current information. But yeah, I'm just happy to be in the space and glad that we're going to have a frank conversation between people who, I guess we lift a lot, and we do defy the odds, and we create. And so many people are relying on us to do more and be more. Let me get plugged into this, to my charger, or I won't be with you in a second. But anyway, we're all here for the conversation around what do we want? What will we build in the arts moving forward? And I don't want to waste any time. So what I would like to do is just, in the tradition that we have here at Teams with a Purpose, pass the mic and, just realize that there are some powerful voices in the space, and we want to just make sure everyone has the opportunity to share their thoughts so that we can move something forward that needs to move forward in our region. And that's our dream and and the knowledge and the realization that arts needs to include everybody, and you guys are movers and shakers, so we need to kind of trust each other and put our dreams and our visions out front and share in this space, in this time, what we see and desire for the arts in our region to look like in the future. So Asa, you're the first one on my little phone screen. So you're up first. Like, tell us your dream, your vision, what it needs to be, what it should be going forward.
Oh man, geez Louise, I could talk for hours and days and months and weeks, but I try to keep it short. I think there are a few key elements that can lend themselves to making any geography and ecosystem into a sustainable and inviting arts economy, right? And I think that it takes certain key elements and certain willingness and pioneering from different stakeholders in the community to make things happen, right? But when I think about the arts in general, and I think about it against the backdrop of Hampton Roads, right? We were just talking about this before the Zoom call started. So many people have heard this narrative of I can't find things to do on Hampton Roads, or I'm not connected to X, Y, and Z, right? Which to me is sort of an issue, right? I look at the landscape. There's a lot going on. There's a whole lot of organizations doing a whole lot of things, and a lot of it is grassroots and community based, but a lot of it is connected in some ways, but also very separate in some ways. Thinking about the different cities that we live in and the different bases that we serve, but also, our interconnectivity between organizations, between artists, and how that can be expanded, right? But then also how that can be connected to a potential patron base or a much broader patron base, right? Like, I have my organization and we serve our following. Raisa has her organization. You have your organization, Deirdre, and so on and so forth. But when we look at Hampton Roads as a whole, it's almost 2 million people, right? Who are looking for activity, looking for outlets, looking for classes for their children, looking for live music events on the weekends. And it's difficult, I think, for a lot of people to connect to what they're looking for various reasons. I think, I think we could create stronger network amongst art workers, but I also think that there could be a lot more municipal and corporate buy-in to what's happening. When I think of the arts as a key element of any economy, right? Arts and culture lending itself to placemaking, lending itself to entertainment, nightlife, culture, right? These are things that are intimately connected with workforce development, are intimately connected with retaining talent in a place. Like, we've been hearing this thing of the brain drain in Hampton Roads for ages, right? Like, our best and brightest going to other places seeking opportunity. But when you look at the GDP of Hampton Roads, right, it's astronomical. The resources and funds that exist here, but there's a disconnect between those resources, I think, sometimes, and how they can go towards creating sustainable pathways for artists, right? And so I think those connecting points are necessary, but also having municipalities and, private companies, from city to city working together to create this sustainable sort of economy and market. And I don't want to keep rambling because, I know everybody has something to throw in, but I'll start there.
Thank you. So the vision is that the business sector realizes our value and invest in us more so. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Okay. Philip, you're next on my screen. What you got for us?
Yeah, so my name is Philip Adongo, and I kind of represent a different sort of model in terms of artist agency and entrepreneurship. A lot of my projects are self-funded, and a lot of them are also through partnerships, whether it's community partnerships or partnerships with corporations. The projects that I'm working on are not based on grants or any sort of requirement. So in other words, I kind of call the shots in kind of what I want to do, and how that's basically funded is through my private sector work. And so I do a lot of private one-on-one consulting, project management consulting, and so quite literally, as an artist, I make what I make in the corporate world, and I invest it into my art practice. And so my current art practice is community-centered, so I invest it right back into my community. And I think in order to kind of look forward into the future of what arts could be, I think it's also important to kind of acknowledge the past 2.5 years of living through COVID, of developing this sort of new economy of performance through Zoom and online theater, and that kind of brain transformation. I think a lot of artists really questioned, are they really passionate about what they're doing? Do they still want to invest their time and effort and resources into their projects? And we've seen a lot of people come through their realizations of my time with my family and resources are more important to me than this particular hobby, and they move on and they change, and that's totally okay. And then we also see that art becomes transformed as well, in that process of maybe people realizing, I don't really like that job, or I don't really, want to spend more time wasting my time on this sort of thing when I could be pursuing my passions. So I think we've seen kind of a shift in a lot of people, including myself, of wanting to spend my time, resources, and energy and things that make me happy and bring me most joy. And for me, my joy is generated through community-centered initiatives. So my most recent project is actually centered on Latino and Afro-Latino experiences through Disney's Encanto, where my vision was to create an intersection of cosplay, costuming, film, photography, and also advocacy and diversity by connecting approximately 35 performers and artists of mostly Latino and Afro-Latino descent to pull together and create costumes for this project. And what's surprised me about that was the immediate outpouring of visibility for many of these performers and artists who have felt either invisible in the spaces that are created by other organizations or by or lack of visibility. And so to be able to kind of bring together community and co-create a project from the ground up that was sponsored by Joanne's and Fabric Cut, I think was a very rewarding experience. So I see the future of the arts as being more collaborative. I just happen to be inside of MacArthur Center Mall. My new space is actually in For All Mankind, which is a community cooperative artist space run by Kimberly McGinnis. And so I am one of 6 artists inside of a cooperative space. So I can see where more incubators for independent artists to co-create and facilitate co-creative opportunities happening. So more co-creation amongst individual artists, more partnerships with corporate, and then more kind of community-centered opportunities where the casual person can participate as well and not necessarily have to feel beholden to a grant or to another entity.
Wow, Philip. So your vision is like seeing art in places and spaces that we just never imagined that they could or should even happen in. Like, I mean, we artists think outside of the box, we're creatives, but what you're saying is go further with that and take it to spaces and places and people, and that collaboration beyond the business sector into every sector. How you said Joanne's fabric shop, even like think way outside of the box.
Yeah. And I just happened to have just come back from Calgary in Canada as a guest there, as a guest cosplayer and also information presenter. So like Asa said, is that this area has experienced brain drain, but it doesn't mean that you can't come back and bring something new. Bring it back to the area with that renewed effort, renewed inspiration. I've learned so much outside. Let me bring it back here and then reconnect that with my people here and help edify and enhance and empower them with whatever some new that kind of grew with me. So I'm excited about that piece. And it is about connecting with partners such as Hermitage Museum. They let us film our We Don't Talk About Bruno music video there, Norfolk Botanical Gardens. And so it's sometimes people just have to get over they have to get out of their own way. Sometimes it is about asking and saying, hey, would you be interested in partnering here? There's no money exchanged, right? But there's content created, there's art expressed, there's community fellowship that comes out of it. And so I think, we are often, looking for the final product in terms of the artist or visual or the performance, but the actual artistry is that community building and the process in creating art. Because what we did in our music videos, which it just hit 5 million views on YouTube, our last video, it was literally filmed one day in botanical gardens, and so there's this whole ephemeralness of like art happening and then it just goes away. But we lived through that art, and that art happened, and the people involved in it co-created an art, and we can walk away in our lives with that. There's something special about that.
Yeah. I thank you for that, Philip. I think this time, like you said, COVID helped us come to that kind of realization that things had to shift, and that's beautiful the way that you shifted them. Raisa, what you got?
So I guess my story might be a bit more personal, because I was born and raised in Virginia Beach and kind of felt like an outsider here growing up. So yeah, it wasn't really a place I was interested in growing in. because of that. So I actually moved to London when I went to college, went for fashion design and marketing. And then, that was where I thought, possibly my dreams could happen. Just very idealistic images of what living in London would be, very shiny, glamorous, just, yeah, nice, but it's actually pretty gloomy and fast paced. You live in a shoebox for a fortune. It's not really, yeah, it's not everything that I thought it would be. But but when I would visit back on like breaks and vacations, I would realize, wow, like, why am I leaving such a great place? It feels like vacation, like it's a real vacation when I come back. And I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going back, because why would I struggle to live in a place like this when I have this beautiful canvas back home, like environmentally, cost of living wise, everything. And so, yeah, that's kind of why I made the move back. But also, I realized the opportunities that I had over there, I could create here, and much more easily and be much more visible. So, yeah, like it kind of added to my confidence in the reasons for moving back. And so, basically, when I moved back, I just, I needed like a passion project, and that was Utopia Fenny. Because yeah, I started the concept when I was in college, and decided to actualize it. And so we started with an art show, and I realized just from having the one art show that there was an actual need for spaces. Because I was just trying to throw an art show just to, get my momentum back up so I can do my art thing. And then I realized that people don't really have access to places like ours. And so when we provide these opportunities, when we teach people that they are artists, it really expands everywhere. Like I remember just like when we went back to Bangladesh the last time, that's when we established our art program. Um, I remember wondering if, this was actually going to work. Like if the kids were going to know what to do if we set them up with an art teacher and everything. And on day one, they created these beautiful pieces just because we gave them the tools to do so. And before that, they had no tools. So it's just a matter of, yeah, accessibility. And I feel like here locally, it's definitely improved a lot from when I was growing up. Like I know the arts have been like developing for decades and decades here, but probably in the last 10 years, yeah, we've been seeing it skyrocket in a pace that, yeah, I don't think I'd ever seen in my lifetime. So I think it's just, yeah, I think we're on a really great upward incline. And we could really turn this into a metropolitan area just by using our genuine communities that we already have here. I think out here, what it takes to be successful is to be genuine. Like you don't really need to move a certain way or play a certain game. You just have to be yourself, and that's enough to make you successful. So I think it's cool, yeah, to be able to be in rooms like this with people like you guys and having a unifying message that brings in more people rather than, creating a hierarchy of whatever. It's like I just like the 757 a lot, and I'm really happy to be here. I feel like it's a really magical place.
Again, I keep trying to keep it quiet because there's like teenagers in the background, so I keep muting myself. But Raisa, I want to hear more of your vision, because okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, we're good, because 10 years have passed and we are good. There's no work to do. Just keep doing what you're doing. Is that where we're at?
Basically, I think, what Philip was saying about co-creation and everything, I think that's kind of what's happening. Every time we throw an event, that's 2 or 3 more creatives meeting together and creating their own new project. Like when we, so part of the reason I teach branding at Governor School was kind of to teach them how to do what I've already done with my vision. Because so when I went to Governor School 10 years ago, yeah, that was the one class I think I I would have needed to be a better student, because I was a horrible student. But I think it really gave me purpose. Like learning how to do branding gave me purpose. And then that's kind of how I turned my life around, was through my brand. And so that's kind of what I'm teaching these kids now. And I feel like when kids finally have their purpose or have a vision, have a goal, it's just much easier to actualize. And I feel like just teaching that concept alone will grow a lot of different ideas into actuality.
Awesome. So really way more of the same. Like we're on the right track. We just need to duplicate and replicate and keep doing it because it's working. Yeah?
Yeah, be patient. That's definitely
Awesome. Anthony, what are you going to bring to this conversation?
I am not from Hampton Roads. I've been here officially almost 8 years, so I've been here long enough. If I had a vision for the future of this area, it would be to create more equitable resources and institutions for people of color. When I took the job at Norfolk State, I thought I'd land in this place that has 1.7 million people, that has 50% African-American population, to be in competition with, or in the community building and expanding with, arts organizations that are already doing all this wonderful theater and, shows with people of color in it, only to find out that, on a professional level, even the community theater level, it's like, I Googled everybody's seasons years before. I was like, it don't even exist. I said, how is this possible? And I used my barometer, good old Tyler Perry. When he goes to a city, normally he does one show. In major markets like Houston and Atlanta, he does 2 and 3. And he was doing 2 and 3 shows here in Hampton Roads. I said, there's a whole audience here that he clearly is tapping into that nobody else is paying any attention to. What is going on? And I mean, I got here and I quickly realized that people are hungry and thirsty for all kinds of entertainment. But as a person who is definitely an advocate for stories of color and expanding our stories and getting them out there, to add to mainstream America, I just find that the future I'd like to see is more of that, more places where people have resources and facilities and all that other stuff to move and push forward, and make multiple offerings for theater and arts and visual arts. And our communities, our families, our children will be much better citizens because of it. Hampton Roads doesn't have flagship sports teams. I'm going to go far to say there's no flagship, even collegiate athletic NCAA stuff. Like, most major areas have these things that are competitive for the arts, and those aren't even in our way here. Like, you don't have to worry about the big games and what am I going to do this weekend. I can say that marketing, as Ms. Islam has already communicated, is essential as a business. We need to pay more attention on how we market ourselves and our organizations. The products in lackluster businesses across all scope of business in this country could be varied, but marketing is what keeps them thriving, keeps them vital, keeps them prominent. But when you do the good work that we're all doing, putting forth, as you say, Deirdre, it's exceptional results in spite of, basically. When you do what you're doing, it's tiring, it wears you down, it's discouraging. You see chunks of time pass and question, like, I see the people, we all see the people we're connected to who say thank you, who are better human beings because of what we all do. But you're like, where's the support? Where the troops at? It's like you're left to continue to do the work. And sincere thank yous, but it's like you're going to wear us all down and then we're not going to be here. And hopefully somebody else floats back up. But wouldn't it be amazing if there was an army of us? So I would just like to see more support, period. And we stand to be uniquely suited to be this arts and culture hub because we're not a sports city, because we're not many things. It's Hampton Roads, all the claims to fame are really affiliated with humanities and arts. And I think we should wave that banner so much higher than what we do. That is it's a municipal, it's a community, it's an investment thing that happens. At Norfolk State, when I got here, I was told, good luck. No one even knew the theater was on campus. And the first thing I did was go to marketing. I went all over Hampton Roads with flyers and students and cars and gas money, putting flyers anywhere people would let us, everywhere, begging for a little corner in the newspaper article, capturing patrons' information when they come in the door, giving curtain speeches, begging people like, you all are here. And if you could just please share what you saw. If you ain't got to give $1. You don't have to do nothing. I ain't gonna ask you to come in and volunteer for free. Please just tell people what you saw here because it makes a difference. I would just like to see a more concerted effort on those things. Being a major naval base also means high turnover. You might have amazing patrons, but they're going to come and go. They're going to get restationed. Their families are going to move. It's a college town. People are going to come in here, go to college, and they're going to leave. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if 30 or 40% of all of everybody's patrons, arts, business, that they don't come in and get out every 5 years. It has to be a high turnover here compared to other areas, which means that you have to be that much more aggressive in setting tones so that when such and such leaves the naval base, such and such leaves this university or whatever, that the reputation and connection is at the institution, not necessarily connected exclusively to people, to get deeper roots and anchors and organizations to keep things consistent. Those are things that I've learned since I've been here. And as an educator and director and all that stuff, I would, and I've shared this with a couple of people, but I would like for there to be more diverse offerings at professional levels in all that we do for people of color. Not exclusively, but just institutions that's what they do. And Norfolk State is not a community theater. It's not an equity house. But in terms of productions that are consistent and speak to diversity, it's like we're sort of a pseudo organization filling a gap that still needs the real deal to happen in Hampton Roads. Mm-hmm. That happens. I hope to be a part of that. And that's my vision. Just more resources, more direct concerted efforts for expansion, inclusion, collaboration. We just got a brand new building at Norfolk State. And it included a brand new theater. The university didn't pay for it, the state paid for it. It was due to neglect. It had become a sick building. So it was on the budget to be replaced. There's so much of our community, as in people of color, who thank God we're a state institution and that stuff, but that brush needs to be struck all over Hampton Roads to everybody. We know that's not realistic to happen, but acknowledging that there is a disadvantage, an inherent disadvantage for people of color because of the history of the country. People get tired of hearing it, but it's the truth. And until equitable resources that catch us up take us to a place where we can have equal footing, we will always be the people who have found an exceptional way to be successful with little resources, appreciated and beloved in our communities. But it doesn't help multiply us. It doesn't help bring the new vision that Ms. Islam is talking about planting roots and let other people find their way to a whole new thing that none of us have thought about. It keeps us just active enough to where there is a respect and a realization that arts are appreciated. But I'd like for them to be more front and center. And much like Asa, I will run my mouth until Jesus comes back. So I'm going to shut my mouth now.
Can I jump in and add something to what Anthony's saying, Deirdre, if you don't mind?
Sure.
I would like to second some of that stuff, right? Like sitting on like different boards of arts organizations throughout Virginia and Hampton Roads, and actually throughout the Mid-Atlantic region of America, I see that I'm usually the only, if not one of the only Black people. I'm usually the only Black man, and I'm usually the youngest person by at least a decade, sometimes 2 or 3 decades. And that puts me in a situation where I have to speak for whole populations of people. And that's impossible, right? But when we look at the demographics of areas, right? I think, Anthony, you were speaking to that, the somewhat close to 50-50, which is a very unique scenario, but we have that in Hampton Roads. And, not being, actually, I don't want to say 50-50, right? I want to say close to even between Black and white people, and then also a mixture of mixed demographics, right? Which we see highly represented in different pockets of Hampton Roads, right? But when we go into boardrooms, it is completely homogenous to, more or less, right? And I think it's impossible to serve the community when you don't have the perspectives at the table to serve, right? Like when we look at a lot of the museums and institutions, I won't call any names, right? We know what the boards look like. And I can tell you from sitting on grant panels and actually being a grantor to a lot of organizations, we rank very low in terms of board diversity here in Virginia. Not just in Hampton Roads, but all of Virginia. And, when I say diversity, I'm not specifically speaking to racial diversity, right? We're talking age, we're talking, background, we're talking, gender preferences, we're talking economic status. There's a million different forms of diversity. But I think because of our collective history here, we always go to racial diversity. And then we always think of, well, how do we access people that we're not connected to? And then there's the breakdown, right? And so that was one thing that I wanted to add to what Anthony was saying. But then on another end, thinking about resources, we have a framework that we follow at the Ken, right? Which was laid down by a curator in the 1950s named Walter Hopps. And he basically said, or discovered that, all arts economies have 5 key elements. I touched on this in the beginning. 5 key elements that sort of lend themselves to sustainability within the arts, right? And of course, this was laid down, half a century ago. So we can definitely add to these 5 elements, but the basis of it is, number 1, you have to have globally competitive art being made and housed in your area, right? Globally competitive means the quality stands up no matter what market you take it to across the globe, right? Number 2, you have to have spaces to show the art in the best possible light as often as possible to the public, right? So that lends itself to accessibility, visibility, and marketing, like you said, Anthony, right? Number 3, you have to have documentation that documents everything that's going on, right? Because documentation lends itself to not only PR and marketing, but within the arts, it lends itself to a thing called provenance, right? Which is the backstory, the history, which lends itself to the value, right? Without the backstory, we don't know the value. Number 4, you have to have museum where it pertains to the visual arts, but as it pertains to all the arts, you have to have industry tie-in. So you have to have the laid down certified industry knowing what's going on the groundwork and having some sort of interaction or cosign or something mixed in with that, right? And then number 5, you have to have patrons, right? You have to have patrons because without the patrons, those 4 other branches of sustainability can't sustain, right? And so without the patron, the would-be professional artist is working a full-time job somewhere else and doing his artwork after work, right? Without the patron, we don't have A1, arts facilities and institutions. We have hole-in-the-wall retail spaces that we turn into all types of things, right? And that's kudos to us for being creative and innovative in doing that. But with the proper resources going through these proper channels, everything can be well funded and connected. And when we think about, some of the most major art movements that have ever happened on Earth, right? Like, some may come to mind the Italian Renaissance, right? Or the Harlem Renaissance, or the WPA that happened in America, and different movements throughout time and history. The interesting thing about all those movements were they were all top-down movements. They weren't grassroots movements. All of those movements came from having a significant stake within the government budget, and then that influencing a significant stake within the corporate budgets, which then lent themselves to foundations being started and all types of things to sustain the arts, and artist guilds being able to thrive and survive. And so without the solid backing of a patron, to Anthony's point, we burn out, right? Because if not, then we're just performing and exhibiting for our friends and fellow artists instead of the patrons, right? And the interesting thing when we're talking about patrons, let's demystify what that is, right? Because a patron is somebody who can buy a ticket to a play, somebody who might turn on their radio when they get in the car and listen to some iTunes, somebody who might cut on Netflix at home and watch a film, somebody who may go to an art show and buy an artwork or print, a government entity that could give a grant. A patron looks a lot of different ways. And here in Hampton Roads, when we think about the amount of, large multi-billion-dollar corporations that exist here, when we think about the presence of the government and the military and our overall GDP, which I think is $100 billion annually for Hampton Roads, making up 14 municipalities. I hear all the talk from all the business sectors saying that they want this to be a place that's competitive with, all the other markets on Earth to retain talent and bring people here and live here. But if we don't make an overhaul investment in the arts, not just support, but investment, right? So more artists can be funded to do their projects, more galleries and more venues can be open, more networks can be formed, right? Because here's the thing, where you give value within the arts, value exists. Where you don't see the value is lost because it's so subjective, right? So if we can agree that something is important to us, then it has value. And so if you can get patrons to also see that and agree to it, then the value is laid flat. And if you can get people to write about it, then it's historic. And so it just builds on itself. So I'll stop there. I don't want to keep going. I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you for that. So because I like to respect our time too, and I know some of us can stay on, but just to wrap up what I'm hearing, I heard all of us talk about a vision. I heard a lot about not what we can do, not our power, and I get it that we have we get tired and we have limited resources. We talked a lot about what needs to change inside of others. And I want to plant a seed about bringing people like us together who have some level of accomplishment is a way is a big statement. And it says you've done something that a lot of other people haven't. And I really heard a lot about what we already have, what they can do to make things better for us. But I would like to challenge us to think about how do we use our power collectively to shift things, because the 10 years where things shifted, well, I humbly don't think it's because someone said, oh, out of the goodness of my heart, I think I want to start investing more in art in Hampton Roads. I think artists have been doing things, and not just here, they're following trends to realize there's some value in that. We already know there's value in us. So we perhaps could leverage together some of what we've already created and know that we are this commodity that's right here in the region. It's not about what's gonna leave or has left. Yo, we're right here and we're valuable and we're doing it every day. Why are you, Asa, on that board? Why are you that face in there? And how do you get other faces in there? And what do you say when you're inside of that space? And I think the biggest power that we have is our experiences, our different experiences, and how do systems that are happy to be the way that they are will never change if they're happy to be the way that they are. So either we dismantle them, or we work outside of those systems, or we build new systems, or we deconstruct that whole entire idea of a system. And as creatives, we create in a whole new way. So I know it's time for us to end, but I want to leave our conversation with the thought of what are we gonna do, the individuals who are on this panel, differently together, it's a challenge maybe, differently together to move some of what we said we'd like to see happen, because we are the power, not them. They shift because of us. Virginia didn't move forward in any direction because of those people sitting at the top saying what they want. They're looking at us and they're moving only because of us. If we don't do something, they don't move. And if they're not moving the way we need them to move, then we need to do something different. And maybe it doesn't really have to include them or look anything like it looks today. So I'm grateful for the conversation. I'm looking forward to us doing something together and bringing other like-minded people together to know all those things are missing, but what are we gonna build ourselves? We've already built some level of it for ourselves. Now maybe we can build some, take us to the next level. Like, yeah, and they'll wanna come along. And we're nice people, we'll let them come. If they invest in us the way we want to be invested. So thank you, Patrick, for giving us this opportunity to have this dialogue. And thank you for letting me help to move the conversation along. And, I'm grateful for everyone that joins us. And give it back to you, Patrick.
I don't have much to say after that. Except yes. And I'm incredibly humbled that each of you joined us. And I've never had the opportunity to see all 5 of you in a room. And I'd like to get us in a real room sometime soon. So thank you for what you have to say and for your work and for who you are. And yeah, I think you're all examples of people who saw an opportunity right here in Hampton Roads and made that opportunity, and you made it happen. And you're teaching others to do it, right? Like literally, Raisa and Philip and Anthony, you teach this to your actors, and Deirdre, I watch you teach it with Seeds with a Purpose, and Asa, you all literally teach branding and marketing to your folks. And that is a major way that we have to change the story. So thank you for all of your gifts. Anyone else have, we're at time. Anybody else have one final word?
I just want to add that I think, this is for a different conversation, future conversation, but diversity is profitable. And that's where a lot of corporate, at least partners that I've had, me coming in and just putting that in their face is that diversity is profitable for their business. And I don't know how many sewing machines I've put out into Hampton Roads by now through my partnership with a singer sewing company. But, that said is that, there is, there are business models where people can thrive in this, in the different models here. So maybe a future conversation, hopefully in real life with this fellow group.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you for virtually joining us if you're watching this. And I'm going to say a couple of words to y'all, but I'm going to end the broadcast right now. So thanks for joining us, folks.
Thank you.